against Persecution in the past and how good that card could be. So if you're trying to get an edge in the White Mirror, Profit Loss is definitely a spot that you do want to be, and it looks like Vidianto is going to take at least one mulligan here. Playing against Kevin Ye, and he is playing Mono Red Devotion, as both players are going to be on 6 cards here. A deck, again, that we mentioned we haven't seen a ton of, but here it is. You got your Ash Zealot, you got your Frostburn Weird, your Burning Tree Emissaries, Boros Reckoner, Fanatic of Mogi, Stormbreath Dragon, Mizzium Mortars, Hammer of Porphyros, along with Porphyros himself, and a little small splash here just for Domri. So he's got 3 copies of those, 4 Temple of Abandons, and 4 Stomping Grounds to make that work, along with Burning Tree Emissary, of course.
Yes. And I know, speaking with Ben Lundquist, actually, even before the Open that he won with Boros, he was talking about playing black instead of red because it helped with the mana sum, because you could still, he basically wanted to cut Boros Charm for Profit Loss.
Okay.
He was anticipating a lot of White Mirrors, and it helps with the mana because Boros Charm does actually require red mana, whereas Profit Loss can still just be cast even if you're missing black mana.
Yeah.
So,
I've seen versions of this deck splash black for the aforementioned Profit Loss and Xantha Necromancer, also Orzhov Charm as well.
Yeah, or Doomblade, or, you know, whatever. A removal spell. Certainly, Orzhov Charm and Doomblade are really powerful to have in your deck when things like Pelucranos are prevalent in the format, or Boros Reckoner, as those are some of the cards that the white decks struggle the most against.
So both players have taken at least one mulligan. You see they're both sitting at 3-0 right now. Black-white aggro, a Luis Scott Vargas concoction. I don't think he doesn't really have much history of doing well with black-white decks. So
no, there's not much of a resume there.
No. So I don't know. I guess Vidianto's just getting lucky. We'll see.
Both players lay out 6. I think mulligans are much more rough on the Devotion decks as they are trying to piece together A plus B.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, you know, the black-white aggro deck or the white-based aggro decks are just, you know, they're just playing normal Magic. Like, they can mulligan and they're just trying to curve out and, you know, put pressure on the opponent. But it feels like the Devotion decks, you know, be it mono blue or mono black or even this one, it feels almost like a combo deck.
Yeah, you need a mixture of setup and payout, and those mulligans just mean you're more likely to have hands that are missing one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. We'll see if Kevin's going to keep his 6 now. Looks like he might be going down to 5, and he is. That is unfortunate, because Vidianto's going to keep his 6. So any spice in the black-white deck here?
I think the biggest spice, if you can call it that, is 4 Orzhov Guild Gates on top of Godless Shrines and Temple of Deceits. Okay. The Guild Gates are such a large opportunity cost, even though the white weenie splashing red builds regularly miss red mana, and that's something that's brought up quite often as one of the weaknesses of the deck. Very rarely do people go to the Guild Gates because you're already playing 4 temples as lands that come into play tapped. You have 4 Mutavaults that don't generate colored mana, so they influence how you're able to curve out. And so the theory is you're often better actually missing red mana altogether than having a bunch of Guild Gates in your deck. Wijaya's deck is a little bit slowed down. He has 4 Banisher Priests and 2 Necromancer. So even though he has some of the same beatdown, you know, curve cards, he also is playing more of a mid-range game, and therefore can probably justify having more lands that come into play tapped. Yeah. He's also removed a lot of the Ajanis. He's down to only 1 in his main deck alongside a Spear. And Ajani is widely considered to be one of the largest incentives to play a white weenie aggressive strategy. So pretty surprising to see that card trimmed down to a singleton.
All right, 5 of the very best. Hopefully for Kevin. Yeah, that's a pretty fast keep. So here we go. Dried Militant starts the show for Wijaya. And Kevin has a Swamp. Pass a turn back, so not sure we have the right deck list here.
Orzhov Guildgate from VD. And follows up post-combat with another Dryad Militant.
So we'll get this sorted out to see exactly. I mean, looks like mono black Devotion to me.
Yep.
And here's a Thoughtseize. You see an Imposing Sovereign, a
Soldier of the Pantheon, and a Brave the Elements. So a good curve from VD here, but actually kind of susceptible to random creatures. Night Veil Spectre is pretty powerful against this hand, Desecration Demon, and so forth. So if Kevin's all on removal spells, this hand's very good for VD, but if Kevin can start actually casting some creatures, he's got some shot with his 5-card hand.
What do you think you take with Thoughtseize here? I mean, obviously we don't know the content of the Mono Black Devotion player's hand, but I guess he's going to take Imposing Sovereign. I wonder. I feel like Brave is the best card there, but like not positive, obviously.
Yeah, it depends if he's on removal or on creatures. I think if he's on a creature plan, then Imposing Sovereign's the card to take. And if he's on a removal plan, then I would remove Brave. So
Militants are going to come across for 4. It's going to go down to 12, 2 from the Thoughtseize, and then 6 damage. And now Soldier of the Pantheon and passing the turn back with Brave the Elements up too.
Yeah, I think Kevin taking Imposing Sovereign kind of implies that he has Desecration Demon or Night Veil Spectre or some creature to add to the board this turn.
Yeah, probably Spectre, right?
Yeah, there's Night Veil Spectre.
And Vidi immediately gains the life.
Very sharp.
Must be nice to never forget.
Very sharp.
I can only imagine. He takes a draw step here. Again, we know he has Brave the Elements in his hand. The other cards are a mystery. It looks like a Xanthodarchmancer and another Brave now. So I like this play. It just says I'm going to force through damage because, again, the next Brave will actually be game over. So it says name black, force through 6, puts you down to 6, says you're not allowed to block. And I actually get to keep Brave up in case something goes wrong, too.
Yeah. And what's also nice about this play is that VD could also reasonably do this even if he didn't draw a second Brave. So Kevin doesn't necessarily assume that there's a Brave the Elements now in VD's hand.
Yeah.
It's somewhat concealed.
2, 3, another creature. If so, it's lights out. There's a Night Veil Spectre. Trigger.
Very good. 2 for 2.
Pass the turn back, and VD will quickly untap, draw, show up Brave the Elements, and do it again. Name black, attack for the win. All right, so Vidianto Wijaya is going to win game number 1 here over Kevin Ye. Mono Black Devotion with a mulligan to 5, tough to compete against black-white aggro. But as we take a look at the sideboard here, and I do have Kevin's in front of me, I got 1 Shrivel. So not the 3 that Todd Anderson was playing, but 1, and it is going to be good. 3 copies of Freakish Cure as well. You got a Doomblade. 3 copies of Dark Betrayal. Now, he did see an Orzhov Guildgate, so you can assume there's probably some black cards in the deck. Now, it depends on how familiar he is with this deck list that was designed by Luis Scott Vargas. You know, there aren't a lot of black creatures, and the things that you can Dark Betrayal really aren't worth Dark Betrayaling.
Yeah, just the Necromancer.
However, 3 Life Pain Zombie is quite good, especially when you are on the play. 3 copies of Duress, and then an Erebos Scout of the Dead. So he actually has a lot of cards to bring in. He's got a Doomblade, 3 Cures, a Shrivel, and 3 Life Pain Zombies. That's pretty healthy.
And if you look at VD's sideboard, you can really see why he decided to play the Orzhov Guildgates on top of the other traditional white-black duels. He has a lot of black cards in this sideboard. He has 3 copies of Dark Betrayal, another Profit Loss. He has 2 Thoughtseizes, 2 Sin Collectors, another Necromancer. And I wouldn't actually be surprised if he removed a lot of the small beatdown creatures and sideboard into more of a mid-range deck. The addition of Dark Betrayal gives him a lot of, way more of an ability to go long. And you see him, he's moving his Boros Elites into the sideboard right now. So this allows him to hedge a little bit against Shrivel or other small removal spells like that, and maybe be able to outgrind the Mono Black Devotion deck. So this conversion I really like over here. You had to anticipate you're going to be playing against Freakish Cures and Shrivels and additional cheap removal in the post-board games. So leaning more on Necromancers and discard spells and spot removal spells and less on little creatures is a really logical place to go in the post-board games.
One of my favorite things to do when I'm always analyzing tournaments like this and just looking at cards in general when you're trying to just work on a deck is look at some of the cards that are really powerful that are just kind of underplayed. You know, a card that kind of stands out to me in this particular matchup where we are right now is just Zathid Necromancer. A really powerful card that just has not seen a lot of play. You think about how this card kind of lines up in this matchup. Durable threat, can't be shriveled. You know, if you do have this in play before a shrivel shows up, not so bad, obviously. Yep. Kind of trumps Desecration Demon as well. So, like, there are a lot of positive things going on here for that card. It's always fun to just kind of look at cards like that hadn't seen a lot of play. I mean, you know, Mizzian Mortar's pre-rotation was a card like that where you couldn't argue the power level of the card, but it just didn't really see a lot of play because, like, Bonfire the Dam was around. You'd rather be playing with that sort of thing. So it's always nice to see, you know, a card like this find a home here. He's got 2 in his main deck and an additional 1 in his sideboard. Another card I feel just hasn't seen a ton of play, even though, again, I don't think it's a card that you can argue its power level, Sin Collector, which seems great in this matchup.
Yeah, no, it's you know, with the Necromancer in particular, that's just a large deck building cost. You have to be playing black, which doesn't have a lot of playable humans and a lot of humans. So it necessitates going into a second caller almost certainly, and then you have to have enough quality humans to want to be playing to make that, to enable that card. Once you've actually done it, it's quite powerful, and we saw it in the winning Rakdos deck in the Chilean Grand Prix a couple months ago. You know, that deck was playing cards like Tormented Hero and Rakdos Shred Freak. Not very powerful, but they are, you know, D plus C minus creatures that are humans for the Necromancer.
Yep.
And that was good enough to win that Grand Prix. Yep. So, you know, it's a hard card to incorporate in decks because it's asking so much of you deck building wise, but there's no arguing with its power level.
Definitely agree with you. So maybe we'll see the Necromancer show up here in this game, a little bit of that action. I actually like the composition of this deck quite a bit. You know, obviously Boros Charm is an incredibly powerful card. Having access to Missing Mortars is, you know, important as well, being able to take down Blood Baron of Escopa. But, you know, the Black Splash in this deck, something I was considering before going to Albuquerque, is pretty appealing. I mean, Orzhov Charm is obviously a very good card. Necromancer is a good card. Profit Loss, you know, depending on how big you think the white decks are going to be, is just a game swinging effect. Again, it's basically Zealous Persecution, which was a huge card back in the day in those white mirrors, and this is pretty much plays the exact same role, maybe a little bit more versatile, but I mean, it does cost a little bit more, but really good card in those white mirrors.
Yeah, it's just really nice to, VD's kind of gone in the opposite direction of adding a bunch of guild gates, but you know, it's really nice to have, even if you're in the 8 white-black, if you're just playing Temples and Godless Shrine, it's really nice to have a black card where you don't actually have black mana, need black mana for it to be productive.
Yeah, and one thing you know about Luis, who's, again, Luis Scott Vargas, the person who designed this deck, is, you know, his finals appearance at Pro Tour Kyoto in 2009, he was playing black-white aggro, or, you know, kind of like a black-white, can be aggressive kind of mid-range deck, and he had 4 Arcane Sanctums in his deck just for mana fixing.
Yep.
You know, and, you know, he had 8 lands that came into play tapped, an Arcane Sanctum, and Windbrisk Heights. It was still an aggressive deck, but, you know, it got kind of started on turn 2 some of the time. And that's basically what Wijaya is doing here is, yeah, he's got 1-drops and Dry Militant and Boros Fleet and Soldier of the Pantheon, but Soldier's still good on turn 2. Perfectly fine. Then you're more than happy just going 1-drop, and then on turn 2 you can play one of those lands that come into play tap, like a Temple of Silence or an Orzhov Guildgate. So
yeah, it's really hard to justify this in this sort of thing in the red deck because you're just lacking enough power to play that kind of game. But Necromancer and I think Orzhov Charm to a lesser extent are just so individually powerful that you can afford some hiccups.
Nice to be able to play Mutavault too, which he does have 4 copies of. Wijaya going to deploy an Imposing Sovereign here. Looks like it's probably going to bite to dust. Maybe a Freakus Cure. It's going to be a Devour Flesh. Sovereign is really interesting because, again, we saw Ben Lundquist a little bit earlier, who's sitting at 3-0 right now, playing the Boros deck that he did win the Star City Open in Los Angeles with, and he has 4 Azorius Arrestor and no Imposing Sovereigns, and he's never really had Imposing Sovereign. You see in this deck list that VD does have those, and now Lifebane Zombie is going to show up, a great sideboard card against this deck. It's weird, just not like the arguments are both. There are arguments for both sides on the cards. You know, I don't think it's strictly that Imposing Sovereign is better.
Yeah, I mean, well, what just happened in that second turn of the game is exactly the reason why Ben likes Azorius Arrestor. VD had Daring Skyjacks in his hand that are more powerful to have, you know, that are better attackers or what have you, but because Imposing Sovereign is very time sensitive, you have to play it often at the expense of one of your much better 2-drops. Precinct Captain also notable in this way, whereas Azorius Arrestor, you can play it after your opponent has, you know, you can wait until your opponent actually plays a creature. You can spend your second and third turn casting higher quality creatures. The flip side of that is, you know, Imposing Sovereign is probably more powerful overall, and Imposing Sovereign plays much better with Banisher Priest, because if you Banisher Priest something and have Imposing Sovereign in play, you attack and your Banisher Priest gets killed mid-combat, you still have Imposing Sovereign to tap the guy that they're returning, so it's not nearly as bad. When it's Azorius Arrestor, that combat's horrible for you because then they get to block something. So those are kind of the pluses and minuses. Sovereign is definitely more universally accepted, but I think there's arguments for just playing a bunch of Azorius Arrestors instead.
In for 3 comes that Lifebane Zombie. Going to knock Wijaya down to 17, and another one. And you want to speak about a card that, you know, we talked about Xanthan Necromancer. This is another card, Lifebane Zombie. When this was released, I know Brian Kibler, you know, a loud voice in our community, Just basically saying, you know, this card's pretty frustrating to play against. It's just like all upside against a green or a white strategy. I can't really do anything about this. You know, this card hasn't really seen a ton of play because green and white decks haven't really been all that popular post Pro Tour Theros. But you can see as right now it's a great sideboard card, unblockable in this particular matchup. No, it's a super powerful card that is a role player right now. Maybe it sees more play as we do move forward and new sets come out and things of that nature, as Banisher Priest is going to try to take down that Lifebane zombie. But when it's good, it's great.
Yes. It is very, it's somewhat narrow, but against the appropriate decks, it's extremely powerful.
So Wijaya has 5 points of power on the board in creatures, also 2 in the Mutavault, and don't forget about that Spear of Heliod in his hand, as Kevin is going to draw a card, sitting at 17 life right now. Does just have that Lifebane zombie in play. We could see a racing situation here.
As someone who plays green creature decks, I think Brian is probably not really used to playing with against egregious hate cards.
Yeah.
As someone who regularly plays mono red, I have very little sympathy, as I've been core firewalkered and Burton Forge tendered and whatever so many times that, you know, I get what he's saying, but I'm a man with little sympathy.
What is your least favorite anti-red hate card to play against?
Chill.
Because I was going to ask if it was Chill.
Chill's really unpleasant.
Warmth?
No, because I don't know. There's something about life gain that feels much more honest than you're not allowed to cast spells for the rest of the game.
Okay. All right. I could see it.
Yeah.
Also, you know, Chill happens to be blue.
Right.
Which is probably a little bit frustrating as well.
They're the enemy. So we're going to see a hero's downfall inside of Vidi's draw step. This way, if Vidi drew a white creature, the Banisher Priest trigger would occur here.
Vidi says, I'm drawing lands. So, while that was a good play, I'm not drawing anything. So, looks like he'll probably be able to deploy the Spear this turn and maybe fire up the Mutavault and get in here with both guys. Yeah, that's what he's going to do. So, Spear will make the Mutavault into a 3-3 and Daring Skyjack into a 4-2. And the game text on Spear of Heliod is relevant. It doesn't come up a ton, the activated ability, but, you know, destroy target creature that dealt damage to you this turn.
It can kind of come up against mono black Devotion at times because often they're, you know, fend you off with removal, fend you off with removal, fend you off with removal, play Desecration Demon. And Spear actually can check that. They can't attack with their demon right away. I doubt this game is going to go down this road because Kevin already has Vidi under some pressure with these Lifebane zombies, although this block makes it more likely that it's going to occur. But Spear's game text is not irrelevant against mono black Devotion. Doesn't come up too often, but it has its spots.
All right, so Lifebane Zombie does trade with Daring Skyjack. So now there's just the Mutavault out there. A pretty Mutavault too, but Mutavault nonetheless. Vidi always has nice cards.
Yeah, he definitely spends a lot on cards, that's for sure.
Lifebane Zombie comes across for 3, and we'll see if Kevin has anything sweet to follow up with. He's going to tap some mana, maybe a Nightveil Spectre, perhaps? All right. So just adding to his board. He's ahead in the life race. Draw a card. This looks like the Banisher Priest. How do you feel about Banisher Priest in this matchup? I think it's kind of interesting, right, where you're playing against a deck that you know has a lot of removal. It probably sideboards in more removal, and you're sideboarding in a creature that can be killed against the mono black deck.
So I really like Banisher Priest a lot out of the white weenie splash red decks because it's sort of just a tempo play. They're trying to stabilize with blockers, most notably Desecration Demon, and even removing it from play for one turn is really powerful if it frees up a bunch of attackers. I like it less out of Vidi's deck because he's not applying that much pressure, and he's even sideboarding more of it out to become more of a mid-range deck. So Banisher Priest is way less likely to free up a bunch of damage, which is the spot that I like it a lot in against mono black Devotion.
Well, Banisher Priest does come down. It takes care of that Nightveil Spectre, but Lifebane Zombie is still going to come across and attack. So Banisher Priest is a 3-3, so now Freaka's is not going to get the job done on that or Mutavault. In comes a land. This looks like Desecration Demon, and that's what that's going to be. So Wijaya is sitting at 9 life right now. He is at 11. Let's see what he draws to the turn. Dark Betrayal is a really good draw
That
step.
is an excellent, that's a really good draw step.
So instead of having to hopefully draw a creature to take care of that thing, he's able to Dark Betrayal and attack for 6, put Ye down to 5. So now we got 5-9, and now that life gains on, we might have to hang back on defense. Gonna
And
play land just pass.
certainly, it's way more likely to hang back on defense now that VD has 3 mana up to activate the spear.
Yep.
So,
Now, what's kind of interesting, right, is should he play that land
yes.
and make it so that the spear is active, so that will stop Ye from wanting to attack, or does he actually just leave the land in his hand, say I don't have the mana for the spear?
I think the bluffing is worth so little here that I would just play the land.
Okay. Well, that's what he did. Now he plays his 5th land as Ye, but it is a Mutavault, so it's certainly a relevant one. Let's see what this 2-mana spell is. That's a Doomblade, and that's a good one too. So Doomblade is going to give Ye his Nightveil Spectre back, and now all of a sudden things have shifted dramatically. He's going to pass the turn back. Of course, does not want to attack in the spear. So Wijaya draws his card for the turn. It is a Swamp.
The old Swamp Precinct Captain deck.
Mutavault. I'm not afraid to take a stand.
I have to imagine Kevin is blocking with something here.
I'm inclined to agree with you, my friend. I think I'd be fine with a Nightveil, or excuse me, with a
Yeah,
Life Gain Zombie
this
trade.
is fine.
Let's get that thing off the board. Pass the turn back. Yeah, he's going to draw a card here. Nothing deployed from Wijaya in the second main phase, so he's sitting pretty right now. Not sure how he wants to go about attacking over the course of this game, because Spirit can start picking up creatures slowly but surely. I think he has room to be very patient, actually.
Yes. Well, everything that he draws that isn't a land or a creature is a removal spell for something VD can draw, so there's no reason to rush here.
Mutavault's going to come in. See if maybe he's going to fire for Mutavault. Looks like he's got a spell to cast. He's organizing his mana. 4 mana. This is maybe a big demon. That's exactly what it is. Desecration Demon in the house. Pass the turn back. And so now what he can do if VD misses this turn, VD draws an Orzhov Charm, which is kind of a miss. Checks his graveyard to see what he can return back. So he can just now activate both Mutavaults and attack in one turn to get the game over with.
Yeah, you don't want to be trying to whittle down someone with a spear. You want to build up a board and kill in one shot.
So let's see if EA tries to go for it here, because Orzhov Charm, you kill a creature, but you take damage equal to what you kill, correct?
Yeah, equal to
Yeah.
toughness, so
Yeah.
actually he doesn't save any damage this turn from an attack.
And if I'm a Wijaya here, I don't think that he's going to do anything. I think he's probably going to see, just concede the game. Don't show the Orzhov Charm. You know, obviously I think EA probably has a pretty good idea there's Orzhov Charms throughout that 75 somewhere, but you don't want to give away that free information.
Right. And, you saw, this is sort of an issue with the way that BD has constructed this deck. Even though he has a lot of individually powerful cards against Mono Black, he's just not that fast of a deck.
Yeah.
And, it's really important to be, I think, speedy to the board against Mono Black.
Yeah.
Because their cards, when you're actually pressuring them, being on the side of the table when you're playing a deck like Boros or White Winnie or Mono Red, some aggressive deck, when you get off to an early start against them, their Thoughtseizes and Heroes downfalls they're like a joke, basically.
Yeah.
There's no way they can keep themselves in the game doing stuff like that. When you aren't doing anything for the first couple of turns, those cards feel devastating. And even with some good spot removal and, a bunch of Necromancers, what have you, it's still really important for VD to get off to a fast start. He can't start the game on turn 2.
Yep. So you see VD's going to go back to the sideboard. Looks like Kevin's going to do the exact same thing here. If you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Star City Games Open Series has made its way to Oakland, California. We are in the Golden State.
Yeah,
What
well,
do they call
California's big. We're in the East Bay.
Yeah.
East Bay.
Okay.
Other side of the bay is San Francisco.
I was there last night.
Yeah.
Fun city. I like it down there. I haven't been to San Jose before, though.
That's a ways away. It's actually
that
not
far
terrible.
away?
I think it's about 45 minutes, an hour. I don't
Okay.
think it's that close.
Yeah, the size of California is actually kind of surprising. I know when I was in this convention center, it seems like ages ago, in the beginning of 2010, for a Grand Prix. Took the drive down with Greg Hatch and James Gates from here to Los Angeles. You think that wouldn't be that long?
It is really long.
It is healthy. I think it's like 7 hours or something.
Yeah, and there's that stretch of road north of LA and south of here where it feels like you're in a Warner Brothers cartoon.
Okay.
Like you're moving, but the background never changes. It's the same
Sure,
background on
sure.
loop. It's just farm field, farm field, farm field,
Yeah.
farm field, farm field. You know, until you hit Bakersfield, and then there's more driving, and then you eventually hit Los Angeles.
Now, what's north here? So I think Sacramento's north.
North and east of here, I believe.
Okay. Is there any other relevant cities up there? Besides, is Sac as far as you go, as far as like the relevant cities in California?
Relevant's such a loaded term and implies something so negative about the other communities that I'm not going to respond to that directly. I
Okay.
will say Sacramento is the state capital. It is sizable.
Okay.
And Oakland, San Francisco, and San Jose are also large cities. And
Where's Irvine?
Irvine is in Orange County. It's about 45 minutes. It's basically right in between Los Angeles and San Diego. About 45 minutes from both. An hour, maybe an hour from San Diego.
All right, so not even close to here.
No, it's like 7-hour drive.
All right.
Yeah, not even close.
All right. Got it. See, I needed my geography lesson for the day.
No, trust me. When I first moved out to California, I was just, I had no concept of exactly how big the state was or where things were located relative to one another. So there's no shame here.
Doesn't make any sense to me. Just hopefully no earthquake. That's all I asked for.
That's, very infrequent.
Okay, that's lucky.
There's little ones semi-regularly, but it's basically, it's not really a thing.
Like a little rumble.
Yeah.
What is a little earthquake like? Is it like sitting in like one of those massage chairs?
It's like you hear like your dishes rattle. It's that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, that's just like a normal everyday occurrence.
Well,
like watching Jurassic Park when the dinosaur walks around. Is that what it's like?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
That's pretty close. Like when the T-Rex is kind of close, but not there yet.
Yeah.
Right, there you go.
All right, so Wijaya looks like he's going to keep his hand.
Let's see if he can get off to a fast start here.
Yeah, he's gonna need to get some pressure going. He needs a 1-drop to really force Kevin's hand.
Especially when the mono Black Devotion deck has Devour Flesh on the draw. The difference in the quality of your draw when you have something to do on turn 1 and when you don't is really noticeable.
Well, he's got something to do on turn 1 already. It's Soldier of the Pantheon, arguably the best 1-drop that he can play. Now, we do know that he bored out some of his 1-drops because he bored out Boros Lead, I think we saw. But it looks like he still has enough after sideboard to be able to get off to a good start. As here's a Temple of Deceit from Ye.
I really like cutting Boros Elite. Not only is it 1 toughness, but Boros Elite being powerful in the game implies you have a lot of creatures in play, which is really hard to set up against mono Black Devotion.
Yeah, if that happened, you were probably winning anyway, right? If you have
Right.
that many creatures in play. Temple of Silence to draw here for Wijaya. Starts by attacking for 2, going to put Ye down to 18. And Godless Shrine, Precinct Captain. So this is an important card to play this turn too, because if he was to play like a Daring Skyjack, he could get lit up by a Shrivel, something like that. So really important card.
Yes. Really good start for Vita here. He has a spear in his hand. His third land is a temple, which doesn't enable spear next turn. But again, spear is just kind of powerful in general, and especially good with Precinct Captain because it's so much pressure, and now Shrivel is no longer a thing you have to worry about as well.
Spearlet Heliod, such an interesting card, just because we've had Crusade effects in the past, many of them. I've cast far too many of them in my day. But to want to have them in your deck so bad, and this deck wants them so badly, and not to be able to play a bunch of them because it's legendary, it's so frustrating. But the first one is so good.
Yep.
As Packrat's going to come down here for Ye. So this card, much like a lot of cards in this matchup, it's obviously very good, but its power level on the play versus on the draw is huge.
Yes, it is not the same card on the play and on the draw. The getting out in front of your opponent with Packrat is really powerful. Trying to defend yourself against attackers with Packrat is far less powerful, especially when you know that Vidi has access to Dark Betrayal. The chances that something horrible happens in combat are pretty high,
Dark Betrayal, I believe, is the card that Vidi does have in his hand right now, too. You see the Spear, he's got a Temple. He does have a Dark Betrayal. He also has a Precinct Captain as well. But I like this attack because if you want to trade Packrat for Soldier of the Pantheon, be my guest.
Yeah, I get to make a token. I get to play another Precinct Captain. Now my Spear of Heliod set up for next turn. And if Kevin doesn't want to block, then Spear of Heliod next turn is going to be just so good, assuming that Kevin's turn is just activating his Packrat.
The other thing that's tough here, though, because we saw Life Vein Zombies in the previous game from Kevin, is that if you're Vidi, you just want to deploy because you don't want to get 2-for-1 by Life Vein Zombie.
Yep.
So he's going to scry here with Temple of Silence. He's got a Daring Skyjack. He's got a Precinct Captain. I think of the two, you want to deploy Precinct Captain first. 2 toughness, Shrivel, all that jazz. Just going to be better over the course of the game, and that's exactly what he does do, and passes the turn back. So now Kevin's got some serious work to do.
Yeah, his turn cannot be simply make a rat with pack rat.
Yeah,
He needs to do something better than that this turn.
And it's funny, again, because if he was on the play, he would be more than happy to just go make a rat with pack rat, make a rat with pack rat, and it's going to be hard to win. But now make a rat with pack rat isn't going to be even close to good enough. And also, something that you don't see from these white decks is the fact that you can really mess up the pack rat math with Dark Betrayal in a bad way because it's an instant.
Even if Kevin was on the play, this would not be necessarily a runaway game with pack rat because Precinct Captain applies some pretty specific pressure. But yes, he would be so much better off on the play. And I think pack rat's just poor in general on the draw against creature decks. I played against it a lot online, and I don't even think it's particularly good on the play often. And on the draw, it's just this is really rough for Kevin.
That's interesting because for the most part, I agree with you. But if there's one card that can actually make it a little bit better on the draw, is the card that Kevin just played in Mutavault. Because on this turn, he can make a pack rat, make him into 2/2s. Next turn, play a land, and then activate Mutavault. And then he's got 1, 2, 3. He's got 4 pack rats, which the white deck's going to have some trouble with. Freakus Cure is going to take down that Precinct Captain. Going to gain Kevin some life back. And now Mutavault can actually go activated. Pack rat can be a 2/2 and do some blocking here.
The biggest tribal enabler for Mutavault, the most tribal synergy that Mutavault has in this standard format is with pack rat.
Yeah, everyone's favorite card. So that's good. That's enjoyable. Vidi going to draw a card. That's that's a nice draw step there in Banisher Priest.
I still just like casting Spear of Heliod this turn. Kevin gets to not block.
Yeah, I kind of like what you're saying with Banisher Priest because there's I guess in theory he can block. His pack rat's going to bite the dust here. You've got 2, 4, 5 points of damage. Going to knock Kevin down to 11, and Vidi's going to get a soldier token in a moment here. But yeah, if the spear is out there, he can't block. Or I guess in theory he can block, but just putting pack rat in front of soldier and activating Mutavault. But then the pack rat problem's out of the way.
Yeah. And you still have your Banisher Priest and your Dark Betrayal left over. So it's not like you have to worry about pack rat really running away with the game. I just think the edge you get that turn from deploying Spear is really huge. But this is also a good setup for Vidi. It's not. I think the play is close, and this board does not look bad for him also.
Yeah, it feels kind of like win all around. You know, there are definitely decisions to be made and ramifications for the decision that he makes on which through drop he does want to play there. Because now, you open himself up to, Banisher Priest getting killed in combat, getting the pack rat back. But, I mean, he's only getting a 1/1 back, potentially a 2/2. So it's not the end of the world if he does get that back, like it would be for another creature.
Yeah, just if I'm in VD's seat, my feeling is if my opponent's next turn is simply activate pack rat, I don't think I can lose.
Okay.
And that's the only world where it makes sense to really Banisher Priest that turn, is if you are worried about him activating the next turn, because you still have access to Banisher Priest next turn if you want to, and you deal so much more damage this turn with Spear in play than with casting Banisher Priest.
Yeah, he does play his 4th land in the swamp, so he does have access to triple black mana, and it looks like he's reaching for it. Maybe a Nightveil Spectre here? Not going to be a great play if that's what it is. It's going to be Hero's Downfall. He gets pack rat back, so now he can activate Mutavault to make that a 2/2, which is basically what we saw last turn. But now, we know about the Spear, we know about the Dark Betrayal as well, so Vidi can just keep the pressure on here.
The Spear is going to be really powerful.
And then, oh wow, 2nd Dark Betrayal. Hey, when Mono Black's the best deck, or the perceived best deck, this is a good place to be.
Yeah.
And now there is the Spear that you mentioned, and Spear is great here. So all the creatures get a little bit bigger. You got a 3/2 soldier, a 3/3 first striking precinct captain, and those soldiers are 2/2s. Kevin predictably going to put his pack rat in front of the soldier and activate the Mutavault to trade there, but he's still in a world of hurt.
Yeah, and all this is a consequence of VD going 1-drop, 2-drop.
Yep.
That's what's causing Kevin to really fumble around and not really be able to get any sort of traction in this game. He's fumbling around with some really inefficient answers because VD got off to a fast start and started attacking.
Yeah, we're looking at a wildly different game if he just starts with, tap land go on 1, precinct captain on 2. We're looking at a much different game then.
We're also potentially looking at a much different game if Kevin simply blocks the Soldier of the Pantheon on turn 2 with his pack rat instead of trying to play the pack rat game. We didn't get a good look at his hand. Maybe Kevin's hand didn't allow him a different route. But
Yeah.
I think people definitely do not block with a turn 2 pack rat often enough against attacking decks. I have no idea if this is an instance of that happening, but
We'll have to ask V. See which one's correct. Hey, he's the master. There's a Life Pain Zombie. You see Dark Betrayal during Skyjack. Yeah, that's the one you're going to get, but Dark Betrayal is at the ready to start killing some stuff.
and Kevin's on 4, and that spear is so much extra damage.
Crusade effects in white decks, man. We've been seeing it for
Peanut
years.
butter and jelly.
Yeah, it really is. It's like lamb and tuna fish. You know, take care of that and send everybody in. You've got one blocker, and that's not going to be enough. So Grand Prix Denver champion Vidianto Wijaya does win this match over Kevin Ye. Black-white aggro does defeat mono-black Devotion and Vidi, who we've seen make plenty of top 8s here in the Open Series circuit, on his way to another one.
Yeah.